Hey everybody, so I'm going to go ahead and get started on this dragon piece, and I got all these brand new Daniel Smiths that I'm way excited to use. The one I'm going to start with, I want to do the background, so I want to make this really simple, do a lot of wet on a wet background, and then just play more with textures than the detail for sure, because I want them to be quick and timely. So I'm going to use this Moonglow from Daniel Smith, and if you can see, and I love this color from a long time ago. I used to get their dot sheets on danielsmith.com, and it allows you to sample everything. Actually, I have them right here so I can show you what I'm talking about. So these are the dot sheets, and I've made full-blown paintings off of these sheets. You could test all the colors that you want, and then as you can see, I've circled some that I definitely want to take home and keep, and here's Moonglow right there. So a lot of times I'll even take them off of the sheet and put them in my palette, and I've done that a couple of times. So if you haven't gotten these before, I would go online and to Daniel Smith and get their dot sheet, because this isn't up to date. They've actually discontinued some colors and put out some new quincedones that look really neat and everything like that. So so I'm going to use that Moonglow, and the reason I want to use the Moonglow is, as you'll see when we get started, it's very granulated, and it comes out with all these different colors as you apply like a wet onto wet or a salt or something like that. So I'm going to go ahead and put the Moonglow on my palette. And I'm not going to put it in a well, because I'm actually going to start a new palette with all these brand new colors. And here's my metal palette that I'm going to do. But I'll just start with those. To get fully started on the piece, a lot of people will dump their paper underwater or run it underwater, what I call baptizing. I've kind of niched that in my work, just because the drying time for the paper is so intense, and I don't work on really insanely heavy paper. I work on about 140-pound paper. So I just take a spray bottle and get it all wet. And I do work at a slight angle. Sometimes I'll work at a really high angle, but laying down the ground and things of that nature, I don't need it to be so angled up, because then obviously it's going to run all down. It's really wet, so I'm going to go ahead and take my paper towel, and I'm going to just dab it very lightly and put that paper towel back. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use a flat to start, and I'm going to pull down, and you can see it's falling down, and this is the well I want. Okay, I'm going to make it a little bit richer because I want a lot of color down there. Richer meaning I'm pulling down more paint. Notice I'm not taking it straight out of the tube and putting it on my paper. You need, even though it comes out of the tube wet, you need to add water to it. And get all that paint out of my brush. So now I've got this really nice amount of paint here, so I don't have to worry about making the paint from me. So I'm going to go ahead, and as you can see, the paper's already dried a little too much for me, so I'm just going to add more water. It's a little dry around here right now, so it's going to dry faster. And I'm just going to go around my edges. And the key here is to not think so much, just add color, let watercolor do what it wants to do. It's okay to let it just bleed. Trust that. Don't worry about it. The colors of my dragon are going to be darker than this Moonglow. At least that first glaze or wash. This is actually more of a wash. It's wet onto wet. And I'm just going to make sure I get into all those areas, go around my hearts a little bit. Okay. And I'm going to rinse that brush out. And then I'm going to grab more intense color up here, a little bit down there, and just kind of drop it in. A little bit more controlled, I went ahead and grabbed my 8 round because I can control those areas a little bit more. And as I'm going, what I'm going to start to do, I want to make sure it's still wet. What I'm going to start to do is add water drops and salt. And you're going to start to see a blue come out. Let it dry just a little bit more, and while it's drying just a little bit more, because I want a nice what do you call it, sheen to it. Fun little textures happening here with my dragon. I'm going to, while I'm waiting for that sheen, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to drop in, I was going to do salt, but I'm going to drop in some yellow, and what I'm going to use is just what I love so much is Quinceadone Gold by Daniel Smith. And I'm going to drop in some yellow, and when it mixes in with the purple, I'm going to just dab my brush so that I don't get that purple mixed in with my yellow as I'm going. So once I feel like I've gotten some yellow in there, I'm just going to clean out my brush. Again, I'm just letting it do what it wants. I'm going to add a little bit of yellow along my dragon here, pick up some of that, just because that's the shine. Okay, so now I'm going to drop in, just lightly sprinkle some salt. You do not need a whole lot of salt to get an effect. Granted, there are some effects that you want with a whole bunch of salt, but when you're beginning, don't go crazy on the salt. If you go crazy, you're going to get results that you don't like, and also you might end up exfoliating your fingers trying to rub that salt off. I'm going to check it. So the sheen is working up here. It's still really wet down there. And so to hurry up some of these spots, I'm going to rinse out my brush. I'm going to dry it on my paper towel. Your brush is also a sponge. It's not only to hold water, but it's also to absorb water. So what I always tell my students is don't use a paper towel to pick up, you know, these blobs of water or whatnot that you don't want. Use your brush. You'll get more accurate results of what you want if you use a brush. Okay, so I think it's perfect now for some water drops. And so I'm going to throw those in there. And you can start to see there's a little bit of blue coming out. Okay. And I'm just going to work my way down. The wetter it is down here, the more it's going to run. And remember, I am on a slant, so they're going to run down just a bit. I'm okay with that. If you're not okay with that, don't work at a slant. Bring it up. Watercolor is very much a personal choice, kind of like the clothes you wear. Okay, and then the tail here, there's some background. I'm going to go ahead and grab a little bit more moonstone because I want it dark right there. So, and then just add a little bit of water to get it consistent. All right, so now hit some spaces that I missed. I'm not going to mess with that background. I'm going to let it dry. The salt, if I keep painting on top of the salt, it's not going to do what I want it to do. I'm not going to get that effect that I'm looking for. I'm going to dry out my brush with my hand, just pull out some of that water because it's pooling a bit. So now I'm just going to leave that for now, and I'm going to move it over and let it dry.